Well, hello world. It's quite a sad day today. About midnight last night, I keep very strange hours. I got a tweet from somebody saying that Micke B Tretow, who you will see on all the Abba record sleeves as Michael B Tretow, but I think you pronounce him Tretow, he sadly passed on, aged 80, yesterday. I quickly checked Wikipedia, who are usually quite fast to update, and yes, he is dated as dying on the 20th of May 2025, aged 80. Don't know what from. He'd had, an illness. He was obviously quite poorly, as you'll find out. I want to send my condolences to his family and friends. Obviously, I don't know them. Condolences, obviously, to the members of Abba. Micke B Tretow, his middle name, he once said in an interview, this B, what does that B stand for? And he was quite reluctant to tell. I think it was the Abba magazine interviewer, Charlie Bates. It stands for Bo, just B-O, Michael Bo Tretow. I'm sure you don't pronounce it Michael, but whatever, I don't know. He was as much a part of Abba and the Abba story for me growing up as the four members of Abba were. So what I've got for you today is just quickly one or two of my recollections about his contribution to Abba and to music in general. I will include for you the tributes that are online that the four members of Abba have paid to him, because I think that's just quite touching. And I'll also show you, I've got some pieces of memorabilia from the Abba magazine, which I'll show you, read to you. Just make it a little bit of an interesting video, and just to say you are going to be very, very sorely missed. So Bjorn and Benny first started working with Michael B Tretow at round about 1969-70. Stig Anderson was a manager of lots of Swedish artists, and Tretow was the jobbing sound engineer. Bjorn and Benny had been employed as producers by Stig, so it was ideally going to be one job vacancy for a producer and a sound engineer, but Bjorn wanted to work with Benny, and they agreed that Bjorn and Benny would split whatever salary Stig was going to pay between the two of them. So that was quite a magnanimous gesture, especially as Benny owed the taxman so much money by that time after an unfortunate adventure with the Hep Stars, which got him into huge amounts of debt. But Tretow was there as their engineer, and they formed an alliance. So basically, wherever the artists went to record, Bjorn and Benny went with them. Now, obviously, Bjorn and Benny had this moonlighting act with their girlfriends, Agneta and Frida, and Micke B Tretow was the sound engineer on those recordings, as all of Abba's recordings, in fact, right up to The Day Before You Came in 1982. As well as being Abba's sound engineer, as I say, he was sound engineer to loads of Swedish acts as well. One that I find very poignant is Ted Gärdestad. Ted Gärdestad was a Swedish kind of Donny Osmond-y teen celeb, and he attracted the kind of screaming girls and stuff that Donny Osmond was attracting over in the UK and in America, just on a smaller scale. But unfortunately, Ted Gärdestad died in 1997, and it was a very unhappy death. And Micke B Tretow, bless him, he said about Ted in his tribute, there was lots of sadness in his life, but I just remember him rolling on the floor, laughing. And that's the way that anybody should be remembered. Tretow himself was a bit of a prankster. Many is the time where Benny would slide open his box of matches to light a cigarette and find that Mick has turned the carton upside down so that all his matches fell on the floor. One of those pranks was during the recording of Ring Ring, he'd read, but kind of kept it under wraps, as it were, that one way to create a wall of sound would be to record each instrument twice, which is something that he was used to doing anyway, because when you play a guitar part, let's say you're strumming away at an acoustic guitar, the next time you play it, you're going to play it slightly differently. The timing's going to be slightly different. Even if you've got a metronome that you're playing to, you're not necessarily going to play certain bits as loud as other bits, and slight different bits of emphasis. You get the picture. So it's still going to sound a little bit like two people playing. But he found out that one way that you could make that effect even more is by, on the second pass, when you record the second lot of instruments, you alter the speed of the tape machine just a tiny wee bit. Not so that you're going to notice any pitch shift, because as you know, if you play a tape faster, then it's going to lift the pitch, increase the pitch of whatever's on there. If you play it slower, like let's pretend that your Walkman's running out of batteries, you'll know because all the voices start getting lower and so it was not as pronounced as that, obviously, but just the nth of a degree of a tape adjustment creates an absolutely massive sound. Now, he hadn't tried it out. He was next due to go into the studio to record a song called Ring Ring with Bjorn and Benny and Anna and Frida. I still think they were Anna and Frida at that time, or Anna and Anni-Frid, whatever. I don't think they coined the term Abba. It would have cost them a lot of money in studio time if this hadn't worked out. Thankfully, it did. And the wall of sound, which, you know, the wall of sound is obviously a very Phil Spector-y type of phrase. But this is doing the wall of sound on the cheap, quick method of doing it, and it sounds absolutely amazing. You listen to that great big battery of drums during And I Sit All Alone Impatiently, and it's absolutely amazing. And that sound was used on absolutely loads of Abba's hits, particularly songs like Fernando, that great big chorus in Fernando, Dancing Queen, Waterloo, My Love, My Life, all those vocals on My Love, My Life, inspired by 10cc, but recorded in Mick's own special way. Now, I'm going to read you an article from the Abba magazine about his work in the studio. But before that, I'd just like to read you the tributes that the individual members of Abba have paid to him. Agneta Feldskog. Dear Micke, so glad I got a moment with you a few weeks ago. You were so sick, but the laughter and your humour was still there. So many memories are preserved. Your words of encouragement during the recordings meant so much. We are sad now. A talented and unique person has left us. Sleep well, Micke. You are in our hearts forever. Bjorn Ulvaeus, his importance to Abba cannot be overstated. He was a warm, generous person and a good friend. Thank you, Micke, for all the laughs. Benny Anderson, you meant more than anyone to the four of us in Abba. I hope and believe you felt it through all the years that have passed since we worked and laughed non-stop in the studio. Our music lives on, it seems, and you are the one who made it sound timeless. You were a fantastic inspirer and joy maker, and the finest sound engineer the world has ever seen. I miss you, and I saved all your coconuts. Anni-Frid Lingstad, you were the security in our little studio bubble, with your never-ending creativity, warmth and joy, and nobody suited in the pipe as well as you. For us, you are forever a part of the Abba sound and you will never be forgotten. I think Frida's bit there has got lost in the translation. He always had a pipe in his mouth. Even as a very young man in his early 20s, as he would have been when he started working with Bjorn and Benny, with this pipe coming out of his mouth. It's slightly anachronistic, really. I remember my granddad used to smoke a pipe. Yeah, I've started to tear up a little bit, folks. So, in the Abba magazine, we have this article here. I'll perhaps scan this in actually. Caramba. This is from March 1983. This month, we offer you the chance to buy an LP which is complete trash. No kidding. The Abba magazine usually sells only merchandise of good quality, but there is no other description for this album, even its maker says so. This is the record from which Hubba Hubba Zoot Zoot was lifted to become the Swedish hit of summer 1981. Look up Hubba Hubba Zoot Zoot. And the favourite of a UK breakfast cereal manufacturer in 1982. It was used for an advert. So this song Hubba Hubba Zoot Zoot, I even think it's on Apple Music. I might check that before I leave you. It's Abba engineer Micke Tretow calling himself Caramba and displaying his true colours on his own trash label. To be fair, Micke's irreverent humour and tremendous production knowledge have created a powerful and outrageous record, but that is a statement which he would entirely deny. The lyrics are all nonsense, but even so, some of the humour will reach foreign listeners and the sleeve notes are often amusing. All we can say is, buy it, because this one piece of trash just might become your most prized possession, and I don't have a copy of it and I've never owned it, so that's a bit sad really. So that album costs £6.50 if you're in the UK, slightly more if you're in other places, but £6.50 is now worth about £21.78. I've just checked on the Bank of England. So I'm going to read you this article, We Are the Music Men. I'll scan it in as well so that you can see some pictures. So this is from the International Abba magazine, 1983, April, I think. 2 editions are labelled as March. So I'm going to assume that this one is April. We Are the Music Men. In November and December of last year, the International Abba magazine had the unique pleasure of talking to Benny and Bjorn about the tools of their trade. A subject rarely discussed on the pages of this or any other pop fanzine, and yet perhaps closer to the boys' hearts than some of the lightweight material which more usually graces our pages. However, to talk about Abba and the way they make their music and to include just the boys is to miss the third and equally important contribution from the man in the chair behind the mixing desk. Micke Tretow doesn't write Abba songs and he doesn't perform them, yet he has moulded the Abba sound so much that the Abba sound is his sound. It's as unique as a trademark and as recognisable as a photograph. Micke's sound is Abba's sound, is Sweden's sound to the ears of the world. On previous interviews we have discussed this, and Micke has highlighted some of the factors that make up the whole. The kind of microphones he uses and where he places them, in the studio for instance. See the original Abba magazine, number 38, August 81 issue. Sadly, I haven't got it. But for this trilogy, we wanted to delve deeper into the mysteries and the wizardry that is studio technology. A common letter to the mag is an inquiry into the function of all those knobs and switches. So here in this piece, that was delayed due to the coverage of Abba's weekend in London late last year, is the answer to that very question. Micke Tretow. Very simply, that mixing desk is 56 identical strips. Each strip contains bass and treble knobs, a panorama control for placing the instrument left, right, middle, or in between the 2 stereo channels as you hear it on your home stereo, a volume level fader, knobs for 4 different types of echo, and a lot of buttons used when recording on the 32-track master tape machine. That would have been their new digital machine. The Polar console was originally a 40 input desk and later 16 new inputs were added. The TV monitor sits in the corner between these 2 sections. It's a closed circuit set connected to the camera at the front door of the studios. Abba magazine. What is the grey box of tricks that is freely wheeled around the control room? That is the remote control box that operates the tape machine at the back of the room. It saves having to get up every time you want to do a retake. Abba magazine. There is a rack full of effects and gadgets at the back of the room. What are they and what do they do? Well, firstly, there is the omnipressor, commonly called a noise gate. Its function is to gate out unwanted sounds and noise. You can't really hear it working. It doesn't create a sound effect. It just tightens up drums and cymbals, for instance. It is particularly useful on hi-hat cymbals where the sound will come out very slushy if it wasn't used. Then there is the harmonizer. It is a digital device that actually flattens the sound of a harmony. It is, however, used to add that hollow quality to Frida's lead vocals on The Visitors and When All Is Said and Done. A compressor evens out the differences in the sound levels of the various instruments. It brings up the soft parts and lowers the loud parts. It means you get an equal output level no matter how loudly the instruments are played. Summer Night City is very heavily compressed. Spectrum analyzers give you a visual readout of what you are hearing. Low-pitch sounds are displayed on the left-hand side of the little window, and as the sounds are getting higher in pitch, they move over to the right. Bass drum to the left, voices in the middle, and cymbals to the right, to put it in musical terms. Expanders are normally used to extend the dynamic range of a track, that is, to get rid of tape hiss and other unwanted sounds like buzzing guitar amplifiers. Digital delay is a device that delays the sound a bit and thus creates an echo like on and on and on. We also have a vocoder, which is a very interesting little box. If you play a synthesizer and at the same time sing, like Bjorn and Benny do on Under Attack, it gives you a sound that could be described as a singing synthesizer. It is a boon for those who can't sing, because the synth pitches the note, not the singer. Abba magazine. What is the difference between recording on the old analogue machines and the new digital ones? Micke Tretow. Physically, recording on digital equipment is no different. The difference is the result, which has no hiss. Abba magazine. But there was some hiss at the end of slipping through my fingers, which is apparently most evident on the new digital audio discs. That is due to the fact it was recorded conventionally, whilst the following track, Like an Angel, was recorded digitally. It's an excellent example of the difference the new system makes. Abba magazine. Is there anything the studio doesn't have? Micke Tretow. The Polar Studio can supply you with almost everything except hiss, noise, distortion, and a decent cup of coffee. He just sounds like a gem of a bloke, doesn't he? So, happy journeys, Mick. It's been wonderful having you and your sound in my life for all this time, and it will stay in my life, I promise. All right. Well, remember to like, subscribe, share if you dare. If you've enjoyed this video, if you've learned something from it, consider £1 or £2 in the super thanks down below. Click on the heart. And I will see you in the next video. See you later. Bye bye.